This is the Aptitude Outdoors Podcast, where we interview travelers, explorers, and outdoorsmen and women to bring you the best tips and stories from around the world. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Aptitude Outdoors Podcast here on YouTube. If you can, go down below and hit that subscribe button. Today, we're wrapping up the second part of a two-part episode, Danny and Molly of Let's Trek Together. If you haven't already, go back and watch part one of their Thru-Hike podcast. Today, we're wrapping up part two, and you'll hear the rest of the story and what their future plans are. Let's dive right into it. Danny, Molly, welcome back to the podcast. We had talked previously, you guys were still hiking, so that was awesome. But now you're done, and I kind of wanted to get the rest of your story before I put the podcast out. Originally, I was like, I'm going to put it out like the day you summit, but then I was like, man, I want to get the rest of the story. So welcome back. How are you guys feeling?
Feeling great.
Good, yeah.
We did it. But
yeah, congratulations. It's a large accomplishment. So let's pick up where we left off. You guys are about to head into the Whites, and for a lot of Thru-Hikers, that's the most terrifying part of the trail if you're heading northbound. So Was it as bad as you thought it was going to be?
So when we left off, I think we were entering New Hampshire.
Yeah, we were in Killington.
So we had like the pre-Whites to get us ready for the Whites, that like 50-mile stretch, and that was pretty tough. But I remember when we got to the Whites, we went over Moosilauke and we went over Kinsman, and we did that whole thing in 2 days to get into Lincoln. Nice. And that stretch was just rain and gross. We got no views on either one. We got like a view for a second on top of Moosilauke, and then no views on top of Kinsman. And like, the technical climb of Kinsman, it was just so like hand over. It was bad. And the rain was just pelting us so hard.
The wind was insane. It was crazy because you start climbing and you have this moment of like, what am I doing right now? This is insane. And you're climbing over. I had to take my pack off at one point because I couldn't get up one of the mountains. And then all of a sudden you got above tree line and the wind just started smacking you in the face. It's cool because you think like no one else is going to be up here in this kind of weather. It's crazy. So it's cool to like experience the elements in that way. So it has its pros to it, which I think is really cool. You're like in the middle of nature no matter what, which I love.
But yeah, it definitely started off pretty rough. But as soon as we left Lincoln, it just like we had beautiful views for the rest of the Whites. It definitely wasn't as hard as I thought. People were saying before getting to the Whites that you were going to slow your mileage down to like 8 miles, 9 miles. And
we did like a 20 over the Prezzies.
Yeah, we did
it kind of ridiculous. But it was like this window of good weather, and because of COVID, the huts are closed for people to stay in them. So it's either like go off trail downhill like a mile to get to a camp spot in the middle, or just get all the way over to tree line, which is what we decided to do.
So we definitely we kept a consistent mileage through the Whites, so it wasn't too bad. It was after the Whites where like our bodies were really feeling it.
What was your favorite part of the Whites?
Oof. So we did the Franconia Range back in November before we did our Thru-Hike, and we did it snow covered. It was just stunning. So getting back there was really cool to see it in summer. But we also hit the Whites on Labor Day weekend, and so there was at least, I'm going to say, 150 people up there.
We climbed Mount Washington on Labor Day. Yeah, like we stood in line to get a picture at the summit sign like for 20 minutes probably, or a half hour, and we're standing there with all these people that are like in flip-flops that are up there, and we're like, we walked 1,000 something miles to get here, and now you drove up here with your car and we gotta wait in line.
But my favorite part at least was definitely Webster Cliffs and everything leading up to Mount Washington. Just that whole area was stunning.
Yeah, I thought Mount Garfield, which is like right after Franconia, was one of the most beautiful views ever.
Yeah, honestly, all of it.
Yeah, and then the second half of the Prezzies, like I cannot get out of my mind. Just it was completely clear, which we were so hoping for, and just getting over Washington, you like climb over the little trail tracks, the trail tram, whatever it's called, and you just see the mountains going. You're like, you can literally see the pathway going up the mountain. It's ridiculously beautiful.
Yeah, I have fond memories of after Washington. It was just like we had with the same thing. It was like beautiful views all the way down. And then that was the day after was the first time I ever saw a moose on the trail. We were at the base of the presidentials.
And that was where I woke up and we saw a moose. Just kind of like, we woke up and we were at I can't remember the camp. It's 5 years ago for me. Like last month was 5 years. So we were at the campsite at the base of the presidential range, right before you kind of get to that main highway, so you can get into Gorham and stuff. And we were down there, and we were in a tent platform at the base. Got there like super late at night. As you guys know, that time of the year, I think when you were there like September, late September, early October, or what would be like late September, there's like dark as shit really early in the day, and you're like, oh no. So we got down there at dark, and we were tired, and we woke up. First thing in the morning, we hear this crashing through the woods, and there's this giant ass moose at that tent platform down at the bottom. Coolest thing ever. Terrifying, but yet super cool. So not to take away from your story. So what was your impression of post-presidential range wildcats? I know everybody's kind of afraid of the wildcat.
It wasn't...
they were exhausting.
They were exhausting. We took a day off in Gorham before doing the wildcats. And then we decided to slack pack over the wildcats with Rattle River Hostel. It was just a mistake. It was terrible. Everyone is just running from the start. So what Rattle River does is they shuttle you to the trailhead from the Wildcats, and then you hike northbound 21 miles back to their hostel.
Yeah.
And so they did that at 7 a.m, and we all started together. It was like a group of 15 to 20 of us, and everyone just started running. We knew like 21 miles was going to take from sun up to sundown.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And so we did that, and just like, I think by mile 10 or 11 that day, we were just like limping. And we were like, oh my gosh. It was, overall the day wasn't super hard. Like, I think it was just that first initial climb up over the Wildcats that like really destroyed our bodies. But
it's those first two. You get like up and over and immediately drop back down and then go straight back up again. And I think that second one was really what killed me. Yeah. We did the last 2 to 3 miles in the complete pitch dark. For some reason, I didn't bring my headlamp, so I'm like having my phone flashlight, like looking at the trail. I was like, what an idiot I was.
But yeah, that was that was probably the toughest section.
Yeah, for New Hampshire at least, it was pretty tiring.
Yeah, what'd you guys think of Gorham? Just like a little nice quaint town in the middle of
I loved it.
It was did we stay there twice? We stayed in Gorham.
Yeah.
We stayed in Gorham twice. So backtracking, we had 2 other guys that we were hiking with the entire trail. And before we started the Franconia range, we like really wanted to do it with these guys. These guys are from Florida, so they've never seen, the whites in Maine and all of the beautifulness that New England is. And we were like hyping up Franconia for so long. And the day we start there, one of our family members got like really severely ill. I don't know if it was dehydration, no idea. He ended up being fine, but he was just like, he was hurling that entire morning. And we were like, oh shit. I was like, oh my God, we got to figure this out.
Yeah.
And so the 2 of us ended up doing the entire range and Washington alone. And then we had to wait for them in Gorham because we wanted to meet back up with them. So we took a day off in Gorham. We stayed at the Top Notch Inn in Gorham. It was a really nice little hotel. And then we ended up we did the slack pack on the same day they did. So they did the same mileage we did just a day later, and then didn't take a day off in between the Prezzies and the Wildcats and went like straight into that. So we spent a little too much time in Gorham.
Because then we zeroed afterwards.
It was a cute town.
Yeah, I liked it.
Did you stop at the hardware store? Did you stop at the hardware store?
I did. Yeah, I bought a new spork. Yep.
I did I had a TV show here locally, and I went up there with a group from where I'm in Ohio. So we drove from Ohio to Gorham, and we took a bunch of like kids backpacking, and I shot a little segment about that shop. So it was cool to like go back after, because when you're there and you're on the trail and you're broke, you're like, oh, this is all expensive. And then I went back there when I had a job after the trail was over. I bought like a $200 sleeping pad. I was like, this is sweet. Yeah, I love it up there. So I would say the man maker or the woman maker of the trail is Maine. It's a beast. Yeah. To this day in my brain, Maine is like a beautiful beast. It's like it's a monster. So what did you think? You're at the final stretch. You're ready to be done. You're probably exhausted, and then you hit some gnarly shit. What was Maine like for you?
Well, wait, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think it's do you think it's really exhausting because of what you just did in New Hampshire? Or do you think it's really exhausting because it's like way harder than New Hampshire?
I personally think it's harder in every aspect of everything, because you've already done 1,000+ miles. You're like over 1,500 miles in. You are in prime physical shape, but your body's starting to lack nutrients. You're starting to get kind of sleep deprived. You're hiking in the dark a lot. I mean, for us specifically, we're late finishers. And so I have a different appreciation for you guys than I do for a lot of other people, because we finished around the same time, October. A lot of people finish much earlier. So like you're already kind of at a deficit. It's dark at super early in the tree line. And then, you're so close, and you know that you can do it. And I don't know what your weather was like, but ours was terrible at the end. Like, we were getting cold. It was like getting down to the 20s. It was freezing. We had a ton of snow. So like, I think it's just brutal terrain, technical terrain, and it is like just you're physically ready to be done and mentally ready to be done, but you're like also strong and exhausted and nutrient deficient. So it's a brutal combination. So it's like that's what makes or breaks you, because the rest of the trails like are the training wheels for Maine, I feel like.
Yeah.
I think we had in my opinion, we had a really different experience. We entered Maine, I think it was the first or second week of September. Maybe the second week of September. Yeah. And our original goal was to be done October 1st. Like that was the goal. And I think we just got to Maine and we were like, let's just take a really long victory lap. Like we hit Maine at the start of their fall. So like it was just the most stunning thing. Grafton Notch and seeing like the start of the colors, and we were like, oh my god. We took our sweet ass time. We were like, it gets dark early, so we're gonna end early. We're going to soak up every single moment. I don't think we ran through any stretch. We would only do like 2-day stretches and carry a crap ton of food. And just like party boat it all the way to the end.
It was hard. I think what really makes it so hard is just how technical it is. There were so many times where you're climbing up giant like cliffs basically, or climbing down them, like the whole Mahoosic range and the Bald Pates where you're just going up straight rocks. It's really cool, but it engages like your entire body now.
We made a really smart move with the Mahoosics. When we finished Mahoosic Notch, we like stopped. We set up camp. We were like, we're not going up the arm today. Like it was slightly raining by the time we finished that like longest mile, and we were like, all right, we're just setting up camp. And then we woke up and we just like powered over the arm. And I can imagine that is the worst climb in the world after going through the longest mile. But for us, it was pretty easy, I would say.
It was fun. It was pretty crazy because there were so many moments where like it's just that giant cliff and you're like, okay, I guess it doesn't matter how I get up as long as I get up it. And so I was ahead of him and I kept going up like a way that was just so wrong. And so I'd be like halfway up holding onto a vine like next to a tree. I'd be like, don't come this way. This is not good. It's crazy too. Right after that, we climbed up Old Speck. And that's just like, it reminded me so much of when we went over Kinsman, just complete. You felt like you were going to get blown off the mountain. You couldn't see anything. So you didn't know like where the ridge and the cliff was. We had really gnarly weather during that time. So crazy. Yeah, it was insane.
But the rest of Maine, we had stunning. Like it was 40s maybe at night, and it was like 60s and 70s a day. It felt like summer. It was a really nice Maine stretch.
Yeah, I remember you telling us about your experience in the 100-mile wilderness with going through all the rivers and how like horrible it was. And we looked out because it was such a dry year. Like the water was never above knee level the whole time. It was ridiculous because I was expecting it to be like up to my waist.
And the water was pretty warm too.
No, it was cold.
We crossed it in the snow, so I don't want to hear it. And that's something I don't think a lot of people take into account is year to year it's so different. Like when I say we were freezing our asses off, we had like freezing rain, snow, 20-degree nights. Like I would wake up and you have your mummy bag and your face is out like this, and this whole part of my face is just like frozen cold. You wake up in the morning and try and light your stove and you can't move your fingers. So like you guys are super lucky, but it's crazy. Like this year, what is it like? I know when we're recording this right now, it's like mid-November and it's like, it was like 70 degrees out today. So like, completely different.
Yeah.
So and I remember specifically, you get to those granite cliffs, those granite, like, it's not like hiking on a trail anymore. They're mountains, and they're smooth, and they just go like vertical, and they're just like granite walkways. But when we were walking, they were like, I would say, an inch or two deep of water. Like, it was like a river. So we're we're going to die. That was my first thought. But so it sounds like you guys had a pretty good experience. Is Maine kind of a blur, or were you just like, I know you said you took it slow, but is it just kind of like, we're almost there or whatever? Or did you have any fond memories of finishing it out?
Every single stretch in Maine.
Beautiful.
Like, I just remember so clearly. I like there a lot of the rest of the trail, maybe that's just because it was beforehand, but a lot of the rest of the trail, like, I would forget a lot of moments in between stretches, but I think I remember every single moment between like Grafton Notch to Katahdin.
I definitely took a lot more photos when I entered Maine. I realized, like, from New Hampshire, I was looking back at my photos from New Hampshire, and I feel like I have none compared to Maine. And so that, I think, made it really nice, because now I have these memories I can go look back at. And then also, I think the other thing is we met so many people at the end of the hike that we hiked around. So it was super meaningful in that way, because there were so many connections we made with other thru-hikers.
Yeah, I think we were right at the end of the northbound bubble. And so everyone was just like, whatever town we were in, everyone was just kind of there. And like, everyone was like too afraid to like move forward too fast, because they didn't want to lose that bubble. Yeah. But I remember at Shaw's, like, everyone was just like vortex there for a while.
and Shaw's, man, that place is
amazing.
Those are the nicest people I've ever met in my life.
Yeah. Hippie Chicken Poet are the coolest people in the world.
Yeah. We got kind of huddled up there for like, I want to say 2 days, because it just poured, and it was like dangerous pouring rain because it was so cold. So we literally just sat in that like cool like game room in the front of their house, and just like I played guitar for like 2 days straight and just hanging out. So fond memories of Shaw's Hostel. Those guys rule. So 100-mile wilderness. We briefly talked about this on the last episode, or the last part when we recorded, but what's your honest impression?
Very different than what everyone has hyped it to be, or maybe what I've hyped it in my head to be. The first half is really hilly for like no reason. It's just like up and down, and there's no real payoff aside from like maybe 2 views. So, but I mean, the last 50 to 60 miles, like once you hit Whitecap, and then just the rest from there, it's just like, oh my God, it's the most beautiful section that I've ever seen. We saw 2 moose there. Those were the only 2 moose we saw on trail. Do you have an opinion?
It was really beautiful. It was so fun to finally just have forest walking again.
Yes.
Like I missed it. And it was so nice, because especially just some of the parts I remember, like coming up to Joe Mary Road, which is kind of that halfway point. We went through this giant forest where it was really open and flat and just huge pine trees. So it really made you feel like that's such a small person in this great big vast forest, which was really cool.
There's so many emotions going through you in that like last 3 or 4 days though. It's like a lot to handle.
Oh yeah.
And
so there's a spot in the 100-mile wilderness right there towards the end before you get to that last road crossing where you kind of like stumble into town and get ready for the big climb. What did you have a view of Katahdin, and if you did, what was it like to see that?
Yeah. So we had a great view of Katahdin. And the minute we got to that bridge, right at A-Ball Bridge, and we're standing and staring at it, there was a helicopter that came and flew up there, and we were like, oh no. We were like, that's not good. And we later find out that someone passed away on Knife's Edge by falling off of it. And it was just like, it wasn't the greatest introduction to Baxter. But yeah, also A-Ball was also closed. And so what we did is in the 100 miles, we did 3 days through. And then when we got to Joe Mary Road, we had a poet from Shaw's pick us up and bring us back. And then we resupplied there, so we didn't have to stop at A-Ball Bridge. And we had enough battery and food to get us through Katahdin.
I think the view you're talking about, like there's this giant lake that you kind of come out to, right?
Yes.
You know where that is? Yep. That was really cool. We stopped and had lunch there, which was nice. So we could just like sit for a half hour, just stare at the mountain and be like, I'm coming for you.
Yeah.
Like, that was, I think, one of the best views we had of Katahdin, because every other day it was kind of just capped with a cloud.
Yep.
So that was a really, really nice view of it.
And then our summit day, we got no view at all.
Nothing.
So it was cool to see that.
I remember, specifically one of the key moments I remember from my through hike is it was just a nondescript area of trail in the 100-mile wilderness. It's a big flat slab. You know, the pine trees are like 10 and a half feet tall. They're super tiny. Yeah. And it's just this clearing, and I look and I stop and I'm just like, fuck, we're here. Like you see the mountain and it's like covered in clouds. You can't see the top of it. You see like this giant rising thing go into the cloud. And my wife and my buddy Lucky, we're all three standing there, and we stop and it's like, you see pictures, you see thru-hikers talking about it. You spend 6 months almost just thinking about this thing. And then you finally see it and you're like, damn it, we're here. Did you have like oh shit moment? It's like it's over, but I still have to climb that big bastard, but it's over. But at the same time, like I'm happy, I'm excited because I've almost completed my goal, but I'm bummed as shit because it's almost over. What was the emotions?
All of it, literally everything that you just said, all of it. It's like the most romantic moment in the entire world. A through hike is like just the most romantic thing in general, and it's like it's so soul crushing to be like, wow, this like lifestyle I've gotten used to for 4, 5, 6 months is like up to a close, and like now what? So yeah, it was a beautiful moment, but like a really, really sad moment too.
I felt like I was on the verge of tears every single day, like just being like, I don't want this to end. This has been the best thing ever. Why would I choose to live my life any way else? Like, I got to the top of Katahdin and we came down and I was like, so we're going south, right? Like, let's keep
Exactly. You don't want it to be over, because it's like everything that you've done over the last 6 months is like, it kind of like shatters your ego. It shatters your image of everything you've ever learned about the outdoors. Firstly, like it's all, you learn how much bullshit there is about the outdoors. I've talked to hundreds and people that are like since I've through hiked the trail, and it's like everybody's so scared of the outdoors and you need to carry a gun. I was like, if I walked from Georgia to Maine and I didn't die, there's not that much to be scared of, at least on the East Coast. So the summit, brutal,
insane,
crazy,
completely brutal. I don't care who you are, that's nasty. Like, and I didn't have any experience doing it besides the hiking before coming up to it. So what was that experience like, that final push to the end?
Okay, so that I just wanted to talk about that whole day. That whole day was insane for us. We get to Katahdin Stream Campground, initially like signing into the Birches, which is where hiking camp.
And it's supposed to pour all
night. And also on top of that, because of COVID, the Birches boarded up their 2 little shelters, so you were forced to tent camp. And we were like, well, crap. We were like, it's going to rain real hard, and then we just have to summit. And we're like, that's miserable. But then when we went up to the ranger station, a southbounder who was starting their southbound through hike on October 8th, insane to me, but I was like, okay. He was like, yeah, like I have a Katahdin Stream, like campground reserved. Like I have the campsite reserved. Would you like to take it? And we were like, oh my gosh, this is the best trail magic we ever received, like ever. We're like, yes, absolutely, we'll take it. So we got our own little lean-to that night, and it was pouring, and we were just sitting in the lean-to with like our feet kicked up, and we were like, wow, we start the next morning, and the ranger says that it's gonna be like partly sunny. It's gonna be good. It's just gonna be a little bit windy, and we were like, great. So we start hiking, and right before we get to tree line, this day hiker is coming the opposite direction, and he's like, I've done the hunt trail so many times, and he's like, I'm going down. He's like, go down. He's like, it's not worth it. It's insane. The weather's insane today. And we were like, oh geez. And we were like, we knew the next day was also going to be, the weather was going to be even worse. So we were like, we either have to summit today, or we're just going to go home and never summit Katahdin. So we were like, okay, well, let's at least try it. Let's get above tree line, and if it gets too gnarly, we'll turn around. And you know that part right when it breaks tree line and you like climb that first ladder rung to go up the spine, and you're just like, oh shit, like this is the moment. Like this is when it starts like actually becoming We get there and the wind, like 70 miles an hour. It has to be 70.
Yeah, 60,
and
70.
we're gripping onto the iron rungs like crazy.
You can't see where you're going. You're like kind of looking for white blazes and you're kind of like, I think this is the direction. But when you start looking at the rocks, it just like disappears into their clouds. And you're like, is that where I'm supposed to go? Like I had so many moments when we broke tree line of like, am I crazy for doing this? Is this a stupid, reckless decision? But like, I don't care. You don't give a shit. I'm going to do it anyway.
So we start going line and you can't see like 6 inches in front of you. Luckily there was 7 or 8 other thru-hikers like that we've been hiking with that were behind us. So it was like just a posse, like trying to just conquer this thing going up.
Yeah.
So
it got really icy too.
It got really icy,
Yeah.
like probably about a quarter of the mile to the gateway. Like that last insane rock climb, everything was iced over. So you were like just praying that your shoes wouldn't give out on you. We get to the gateway and it looks like we're straight up on the moon. Like it like you can't see anything. Everything is just like really bizarre looking. And it was with the wind chills, it had to be like in the teens, maybe even lower, like in the single digits.
My hair froze.
Yeah, we had layers on layers and we were dying trying to get up there. We get a quarter of the way to the sign and these 4 hikers come in the opposite direction and they look at us and they say like, we don't mean to ruin your thru hike, but we have really bad news. And we're like, shoot, like it can't be that bad. And they're like, there is a dead body up at the top of the, like right at the sign. There is a dead body. And like, we don't know how to process this in the moment. Like
so many emotions.
Every single emotion. And so we're like, do we summit? I was like, we can't turn around. We just did 5 miles of like the hardest climbing we've ever done. And we're like, we either see it or we don't see it. So I was like, okay, we're just going to go. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to be fast. We're just going to pay our respects, touch the sign, take pictures and like get off.
Our friends were already up there. So the guys that we had been hiking with this whole time were basically, I think they were already at the sign when we were told that news. So it was like, well, we can't not go up there. They're up there. Like we need to go see them. So I think that was also like, we had to push.
So yeah, and we got up there and we don't know how he passed away. We think that we thought it was a 70-year-old man just from, he was like laying on his front and
you could just see like white hair,
but I guess that was from the icing over. It turned out that it was a kid in his 20s that and we think, we're not sure, but we think that he tried to hike up for sunrise and he just kind of he was in the wrong, like completely wrong gear. He was in like a rain jacket and like it looked like he was in shorts. And so we think he just kind of got hypothermia and then just kind of died. It was a really, really somber moment to end with.
Yeah.
But it was the AT kind of just saying like, get off my trail.
I was not aware of that until you guys told me. I had no idea that somebody had passed away up there. That is like the biggest like bummer at the end of the trail. Holy shit. Because you're already super emotional.
Yes. It was really hard too because the 8 people behind us, the 8 other thru-hikers, half of them like turned around, and I totally respect that. I don't know if it was because of the body or it was just freezing up there. Some of them were just dying from the cold. But we came down and it was like the most uncomfortable situation because like half of us were like cheering and excited and half of them were just very like sad and depressed and all that. And so we then went to the AT Lodge closed. So we went to a bed and breakfast that opened in Millinocket and all of us went. Like it was like 15 thru-hikers and it was a very awkward time for all of us. Like we didn't know whether to celebrate or be like sad that the others didn't finish. And it was, it wasn't the ending we wanted, but it was still a pretty epic ending.
Yeah. It just goes to teach you like that mountain is something not to be messed with. Like you got to know what you're getting yourself into. It was interesting when we were talking to the ranger afterwards when we had gotten down there and we were waiting for our ride. And he was talking about like, if you make more than one mistake going up that mountain, like it can be deadly. Like it just really shows, make sure you know what you're doing, make sure you got what you need, you have somebody with you, all that kind of stuff to really make sure that you're being safe going up there. Because I think a lot of day hikers will underestimate it. I mean, Thru-Hikers too. There's lots of people. You don't really know till you're up there. So it's better to be over prepared than under prepared.
Yeah.
It was a crazy week in general. So like we said, like the day we summited, we saw a body. The day before, a guy had gone down Knife's Edge and had to be rescued. And he passed away in the hospital. And 4 days before we summited, a 13-year-old boy got hypothermia and also was rescued off the mountain. So it was just a wild week for Katahdin.
Well, yeah, that's something in the coming years when you're, well, depending on what you guys plan to do. I mean, that's something, that's a huge accomplishment. You should be very proud of yourselves. You know, I've found that in the coming years, like your level of like caring about it goes downhill because like it's so far in the past, but like it's really something awesome. Thousands of people do it, but like there's billions of people on Earth, so you're in a very small minority of people who've done something this great, and like very proud of you guys.
Thank you.
Great job. Your stories have been awesome, and before we go, you've been off the trail for a little bit, maybe almost a month now. How are you feeling? How are you adjusting back to the drudgery of day-to-day life after the trail?
It's been really hard, but I think it's been really hard to get off and go back to Jersey, where there's just a lot of negativity. I mean, with the whole year that's happened, there's just been so much misery for so many families and people in general. So it's been hard to have such a positive, excited mindset coming back to such a negative space. But
it's okay. What's really good about it is we have a goal that we're working towards of what our next plan is. So that's really helping, just having, even though it kind of sucks right now with what we're doing, like you have a couple months in between your next adventure. So it's just saving up money, working, and trying to cope with everything going on right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the only advice I have to you is you'll bounce back, you'll recover, the pains will go away, and you'll be having a good time soon enough. So thank you guys. If you want to throw out your social media stuff again, I know we probably did it on the last episode, but we'll just do it again for good measure.
Same.
Oh, okay.
You go.
So you can find us at Let's Trek Together on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok now too. I'm trying to think. And then there's also a blog page that I started that's really behind, but I'm putting up stories about our experiences on the AT on there as well. And that can all be found through our YouTube page. All of it in the description. We have all of our links posted there. And there's another thing you started where all of our information's in one place.
A link tree.
A link tree.
Through our Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah,
Cool.
So lots of places. Lots of things going on. We did trail magic the other day for some people. So we posted about that. So we're trying to stay really active on all of those social medias.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this episode of the Aptitude Outdoors Podcast here on YouTube. If you can, go down below and hit that subscribe button. I want to thank Danny and Molly from Let's Trek Together for coming on the podcast and sharing their awesome story of their Appalachian Trail Thru-Hike. If you can, make sure you head over to Let's Trek Together on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube and follow what they're doing. They got some pretty big things coming up in the future. So thanks again. I'll see you all next time.